The Senate Committee on Government Affairs will come to order. Madam Secretary, please call roll.
Vice Chair Orenshaw. Here. Senator Goycochea. Here. Senator Daly. Here. Senator Krasner. Chair Flores.
Present. Please mark Senator Krasner as absent excused. And we do have 4 members present. We have a quorum. Good afternoon. Welcome all to the hardworking Committee on Government Affairs. We appreciate all of you being present today. We have 4 items on the agenda, 3 bill presentations, followed by public comment. We're going to take the agenda in the order it appears. I want to remind folks to please silence your cell phones. I'm silencing mine as we speak. I want to remind folk, should you wish to testify today, that you please state your name for the record after each question. Also, if you could please sign in right by the door and/or with our staff to make sure that they have your contact information should we need to reach out to you. Anybody wishing to provide any testimony in support, opposition, or neutral, please know that you can always provide that testimony in writing, and we'll make sure it gets uploaded in the right category. And lastly, I want to remind folk that we are going to be looking at our laptops as you're presenting. Please don't take that as a sign of disrespect. We are following along. Most of the items that are projected on here are projected on our laptops as well. With that, like I said, we have 3 bills that we'll be hearing today. We'll start off with Senate Bill 12, which makes various changes to the charter of the City of Reno. Whenever you're ready. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair Flores, Vice Chair Orenshaw, members of the Committee on Government Affairs. Thank you for the opportunity to present this bill today. I have the honor of introducing our mayor, Mayor Hillary Sheevey. She will give you a little bit of a high-level overview of the bill, and then we'll give you a little bit, I'll go more into the details of the bill and the public process that got us here. So with that, Mayor Sheevey.
Well, thank you so much. Before I start, I like to embarrass people, so I do want to say happy birthday to our city manager, Doug Thornley. Happy birthday. He hates that, so we just got to get him. And then also I want to say thank you so much for your time. This is kind of like, what, a 4-month council meeting that goes on and on and on. So I appreciate the work that you do and how you serve Nevada. So thank you so much. So I want to address Chair Flores and Vice Chair Orenshaw, and I'm also told to stick to my notes because I like to be a little ADD, so I want to respect your time. Thank you for inviting us here today. I would like to start off because I believe that I'm uniquely qualified to speak on this as I have served both as mayor and the large role in the city of Reno. So not many people have done that, but I have. So I have a very unique perspective because I'm living it. Before ward-only voting, as mayor, I could get my entire council to show for ribbon cuttings, community initiatives, and public meetings. Now I'm lucky if I get one to show up. And usually it is the at-large person who is showing up. I've seen the negative impacts of this transition, and I'm often told, not my ward, not my problem. Instead of uniting us in the city, this has completely divided us. I understand the reason why it was originally implemented. It sounds like a great idea, but it really has become incredibly divisive. When I was the at-large member, I knew firsthand the importance of the role. Constituents would reach out frustrated that their council member wouldn't meet with them and didn't feel represented in the community. Oftentimes, this can happen due to political differences. Oh no, we don't have political differences, do we ever? Now more than ever, so maybe that is another reason why this feels so disjointed. Some council members even have auto replies on their emails stating that they won't meet with people on certain issues. I have to tell you, it often feels like a Hunger Games mentality now when it comes to resource allocation or projects in specific wards. It has become territorial, inequitable, and divisive. Council members do not show up for one another at the same way they used to. This shouldn't be about politics, it should be about people. To accomplish the goals of our community, we need to thrive together. We have to work together, we have to have a shared vision, and these decisions cut across ward boundaries. Let's make no mistake. This is going to be very unpopular, what I'm about to say, but let's make no mistake, eliminating the at-large seat is not about better access for residents. It's actually about cheaper and easier races. The at-large position is crucial, and it's important to a citywide perspective and collaboration with a ward perspective. So thank you so much for your time, and I'm going to hand it over to Nick. Good luck. He's very excited to be here, by the way. I don't think he's slept for days, so warm welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Nick Ciccone, Legislative Relations Program Manager, for the record. So as you know, and I think the mayor had touched on it a little bit, but the city charter is our constitution when it comes to the city of Reno. From January of 2022, this has been a public process. It went through the Reno City Charter Committee, the Reno City Council, and now it's here before you at the Nevada State Legislature. Our committee, just for those that might not know, the Charter Committee is composed of 7 appointments from the council, the Reno City Council, and 6 from the legislature. The committee presented to council, which currently is composed of 1 mayor, 1 at-large member, and 5 ward-based council members. So now we are at the 3rd time that we're going before a public body to consider this proposal. So here are the 3 changes. Our mayor did highlight the largest one that has come up, which is Section 18, which retains the at-large position. You'll notice that the bill is quite long. The reason for that is that first section, which goes through 1 through 17 and 19 through 29, which just eliminates gendered language in favor of gender-neutral language. Sections 30 and 31 add green infrastructure projects to local improvements. And so, as I said, this has gone through a public process from the beginning of 2022. You'll note here that I only highlighted dates from March on. That's because for the first couple of meetings, the committee was catching their bearings, trying to understand a little bit more about what is a Reno City Charter and what is our role as the Charter Committee members. So throughout the process, these are the topics that they walk through, and I won't belabor any of these points, but as you can see, on March 28th, they did begin talking about what will it look like in 2024 when we get rid of the at-large position in favor of a 6th ward. And so throughout the process, they discussed many different things, including redistricting, which we were in the process of doing for the 2020 realignment based on the census, and other things like the Reno's housing challenges and initiatives, looking at it, what do elected offices look like and what does that look like filling those vacancies when they do occur, newspaper noticing requirements. Some of these you might even notice have actually become bills in the legislature, like multilingual noticing requirements. So all through this process, many different topics did come to hand. It was not just specifically the 3 that the Charter Committee ended up choosing. Another one that had come up, you'll see on June 13th, we have they officially did repeal the change to the 6 wards. They also talked quite a bit about adding a chief equity officer into the Reno City Charter. Ultimately, that was not added, but we did create the office of Chief Equity and Community Relations Officer, and she will have the opportunity to speak with you later today when we do our city overview presentation. So after going through that process with the Charter Committee and going through those conversations, identifying different things that the Charter might need to relook at as a living, breathing document, the Charter Committee met with the City Council, and the City Council accepted that report, which included those recommendations that I had highlighted before. And finally, on August 10th, the City Council did direct staff to go ahead and submit to the legislature a BDR to amend the Reno City Charter. So the first change that I had highlighted before, and as you'll note, it takes up the majority of the pages for this bill, that is just gender-neutral language. That just is a major step for us to be more inclusive of all folks, no matter how they identify or how they choose to identify. The next thing is the city council structure. So I think the mayor gave a great perspective from having served in the at-large position and as the mayor of our city. but with this combination system that we have the benefits of a neighborhood-specific or ward-specific identities. So, for example, currently we have 5 wards. And each individual in that ward, if you're represented, if you live in Ward 3, you can go to your Ward 3 representative and ask them to do something for you, maybe constituent work, or maybe you want to change a policy. But because we have this hybrid system, you actually have 3 people you can go to currently. You could go to the mayor, you can go to the at-large person, or you could go to the Ward 3 council member if you were in that Ward 3 seat. So this combines that additional benefit. Every single resident in the city of Reno, no matter where they live, has 3 representatives they could go to. The other thing is that with the at-large position, the charter committee felt that it was an additional way for the entire city to make a decision on who they would want to represent them as a citywide voice. The last change that I had highlighted is green infrastructure. And I think a lot of folks will ask the question, what exactly does that mean? What does it mean to add that to our city charter? So we've provided a brief definition here for folks just to understand what the charter committee was going for and what kind of things we were aiming to alleviate or address. So green infrastructure is the range of measures that use plant or soil systems, permeable pavement or other permeable surfaces or substrates, stormwater harvest and reuse or landscaping to store, infiltrate, or evapotranspirate stormwater and reduce flows to sewer systems or to surface waters. Basically, the idea here was to address things like urban heat islands. I think that it's no question that is something that each of our larger cities is facing. And so having an additional tool in our toolbox to address that was one of the things that the city charter committee had identified. So finally, and I know I tried to keep it short and probably a little too quick, but the 3 things that this bill does to our charter: it eliminates gendered language, it retains the at-large position, the effects of which in 2024 that position would go away if this bill were not to pass. And 3, Section 30 and 31, that just adds green infrastructure projects for the city of Reno to be able to do under local improvement law. And that's it.
And thank you. No, and I think you did a great job of breaking that down for us. I appreciate the slides. Members, any questions? Senator Goycochea, please.
Thank you. Now, if the bill does pass, and again, then you move away from the 6th seat, then will you, in fact, redistrict the other? You're going to have to redistrict the other wards, right?
Could you help me understand that question? You're asking if we kept the 5 positions that we currently have, the at-large position and the mayor, would we have to redistrict?
If you could just state your name for the record.
Oh, sorry. Nixa County Legislative Relations Program Manager.
I'm assuming you are going to end up with 6 wards, but maybe you're not. You're only going to have 5 wards in the mayor and just delete the 6th ward seat?
No, maybe that was my fault, Nixa County and City of Reno. For the record, if we were to get rid of the at-large position, we would create that 6th ward. Now, depending on what this body does, it could ultimately eliminate the 6th position. I'm not sure what that looks like. Does that help?
I guess I'm not sure it was up to us to eliminate the position, or in fact, I'm just curious, if you do run to 6 wards, then you'll have to redistrict all 6 wards, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry, I misunderstood the question. Yes,
Clarify
we would
that.
have to redistrict at that point.
So it'll be wide open again. I mean, the little debate. All right, thank you. And then the other question I had is on your green infrastructure projects. I know what you're saying, but again, now you would then by ordinance or plug those in? I'm not real sure how that's going to work.
Yeah, so Nixa County, Legislative Relations Program Manager, City of Reno. I am not the expert when it comes to local improvement law, but as I understand it, this would just mean that for different projects or improvements, we would be able to endeavor to place maybe like a special assessment district in order to go ahead forward with a project like this.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Senator Daley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll ask my questions on a couple of the areas. So on the green, and I was just looking for it in here on where it's at here, but so you have that language in there specifically, but it didn't stop you from doing the greenscape or whatever before. It's just wanted that it was looks like section 18. So the green infrastructure projects, in addition to all the other things, you would have been able to do them either way. You just wanted to emphasize it and have it included there so it's clear. But there was nothing prohibiting you from doing this before.
Nix County, City of Reno, yes, that's correct. There's nothing prohibiting us from endeavoring in these projects already.
So it's just an emphasis. And then on the main issue, on the at-large versus the wards and various things, and I remember the fights. I remember the issues that came up when we were switching back and forth, because I think both Reno and Sparks and many of the other cities in the state had ward-only primaries, but then they had citywide general elections. And I think that system showed the flaw of, why we shouldn't have the citywide the same. People would win in their ward, but then lose citywide. So I think it was more about a question. It wasn't about campaign financing or any of that type of stuff. It was about each individual ward being able to have the representative of their choosing, rather than someone chose, that ward wanted one that won the primary and then would lose in the general election, so the whole city's selecting that person. It was really more about individual representation, and I, don't want to argue with the Honorable Mayor of Reno, but I haven't seen some of those arguments and various things and disagreements between council members and various things in Sparks or in Reno, because Sparks also has the ward only. And I know I've heard a great deal of comment back and forth from people on the ward versus at-large versus the city, et cetera. A lot of people want to have their individual representative, and we fought long and hard to get ward-only voting. So I'm not exactly sure where this comes down on there. And I'm sorry that's not a question, but I just have some concerns. So you're really seeing arguments and fights between representation and all of the types of things, and people not showing up and saying, not my ward, not my problem. I haven't seen that before.
Nix County, City of Reno, I think that's a place for our elected body that would probably be better to speak to. I know that with respect to the Charter Committee, that is something that they had identified. The other thing too is, and I know you highlighted it, but when we switched to ward-only voting, folks were used to having those additional city representatives by being able to vote in the general election for those individuals. So having this additional position is the equilibrium or the hybrid between the two systems from the Charter Committee's perspective. Thank you.
And I understand. On the Charter Committee, and I know it was a majority vote of how many people were actually are on the Charter Committee and how many were actually there when this vote happened.
I don't remember the exact number. I believe 8 were there out of the 13.
And the vote was?
Nix County, City of Reno, sorry. I don't remember the exact vote.
And I just know what I see some of the emails that it wasn't exactly unanimous. But so separate question, and not in your charter, not in your deal. Have you guys ever thought about this? Is an old question as well regarding the city attorney, which I know is elected in Reno and Sparks, the only two cities in the state. Has there been any discussion or thought process of maybe having the criminal prosecution or the criminal side of what the city attorney does be elected, but the civil side representing all the rest of this stuff being appointed? And I know there's the bifurcation there on that. And I think that's a compromise from strictly appointed versus strictly elected. And I have seen issues where city attorneys have used that elected position to say, I'm going to do what I want, and I'm elected, and you can't do anything about my position. In fact, I know Sparks had to amend their charter to allow them to go and get outside counsel if they wanted to, because the city attorney was challenging them on being able to do that. So has there been any thought regarding having that elected for criminal and appointed for the rest?
Nix County, City of Reno, that's not something I'm able to speak to, just given that we went through the public process through the Charter Committee, and that's not something they had identified. But I do, in fact, have my mayor here who looks awfully eager to speak.
And I felt strongly about this for a long time. I think you bring up a great point, and I'll tell you why. It's
And if we
very-
could just have you identify,
Oh,
please.
Mayor Sheevy, City of Reno. And I think it's very confusing, and we have seen it firsthand. Who does your city attorney represent? Does he represent the citizens? Does he represent his office? Or does he represent the council? And that's where there is a lot of confusion. And so I think possibly sometimes city attorneys have ulterior motives and they don't represent the council, and then they don't represent the constituents, and it gets very, very convoluted. So I share your interest. On the at-large, I have served it, so I've seen it firsthand. It is very frustrating to have a city, we're not big enough to where I believe that you have to have, specific wards in that sense. But it is incredibly frustrating to see that downtown, I always say, is like a city inside a city, right? And everyone should be rooting for Reno. Everyone should not not everyone, but I would say council members should, they're taking votes in other people's wards. Let's say, for instance, Ward 3 needs affordable housing desperately, and maybe another ward feels that we shouldn't have any growth at all, and it becomes detrimental that we get affordable housing in that ward because there's no invested interest, or maybe they dislike them politically. I've seen that happen. And yet, this council member has, this council member has great interest when they weren't even elected by the community in that ward. And that is also, I think, incredibly problematic. But I know firsthand, I would just plead with you, it has divided our city like nothing I've ever seen, and I don't think people are getting fair representation at all. It really has become about politics and not people. And it is, and we all know this because we sit in these seats, we all get elected. Mr. Daley, and you know that, Senator Daley, that it's much easier to get elected whenever you don't have to raise as much money, and it's not as difficult, and you don't have to work as hard. And that's what I hear behind the bar and the comments from politicians, and it's wrong. We need at-large representation. They represent the body, and the mayor represents the community. They represent the body as the council. And if you look at any description of the at-large representative, that's what it will tell you. So, thank you.
And thank you, and I appreciate that, and I will reach out to as many of the city council people and see if they'll call me back, right? I know it might be different in Sparks when I call, there's 5 and rather than the 6 and then the mayor's position. And I've heard the argument both ways when we switched from at large, everybody in the general election citywide to the ward only, and there's always a trade-off when you do that. So I'll look into that a little bit more, but I'll also, not that you're the charter committee or anything else, and I do respect the charter committee process, but just because they didn't bring that issue up, I am interested in looking at the city attorney issue, so maybe we'll have something that addresses that.
Vice Chair, please.
Thank you very much, Chair Flores. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Ciccone. Appreciate you taking the time to go over the bill and talk about it with me. A question I have, Mayor, earlier you discussed some of the ceremonial roles that you have, and that the at-large councilperson sometimes helps and participates, goes to those. Are there currently any clearly outlined roles that the at-large council member has in terms of those ceremonial roles that they need to participate and help out with, or is that something they just do because they want to be involved with that? Thank you.
Generally, they are the intermediary between the body, and then the mayor represents the entire community. So they are very distinctive, whereas the mayor, I'm constantly working on so many different initiatives, procedural and ceremonial, which the at-large person doesn't participate in. Also, and maybe this is just my city, and I'm speaking from just my city, but we've had tremendous economic growth where I serve as that person whenever it comes to businesses and other initiatives, whether it's infrastructure or mental health or all these other things. So I think, you know, the mayor just plays such a unique role as the community as a whole. And then the at-large is really the person that works amongst the body, and that's also the definition of what they do. So I think they're very distinctive.
Thank you, Mayor. And Mr. Chair, may those be the one follow-up? You know, coming from Southern Nevada, we've seen our population just skyrocket, and starting to see that here in this part of the state. And down south, as, you know, cities and the unincorporated county get bigger, in terms of how many constituents per council member, commissioner, sometimes it gets hard to make sure that all those calls are returned for that council person, that commissioner. So one thing I was wondering here, are there any projections as to if the council member, the at-large council member, were to be given a ward, what those 6 wards in Reno, what the population would be per council member versus if that at-large person remains at large, and I wonder how that might affect constituent response time, that kind of thing.
Nixon County, City of Reno. So for the record, the City of Reno, based on the amount of constituents that each elected representative represents, we have among the lowest number currently. So if we were to install a 6th ward, I believe that'd be 38,000 each, roughly. Currently, even with the 5th ward and the at-large position, each of them represent 55,000 each. That is above par for some of the other cities in the state.
Thank you. And just to clarify, Mr. Chair, so if nothing changed and the 6th councilman became a ward, running in a ward, there'd be about 38,000 constituents per council person. But if this changes and they stay at large, there are 5 wards, those 5 wards would be at about 55,000 persons. Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
And with that, thank you for the presentation. I'm going to ask that you please take a seat in the back, and I'm going to invite those wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 12 to please come forward. I don't think we have anybody wishing to participate. BPS, do we have anybody on the phone?
Testify in support of SB 12, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you, BPS. We'll stay on the phone. Anybody wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 12 on the phone? I don't think we have anybody on the phone wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 12. Anybody wishing to speak in opposition either in Carson City or Las Vegas? And as a request from
Sorry.
Yes?
I'm sorry, Chair. We were having some technical difficulties. I do believe we have someone who is actually in support. Would it be okay for them to give their testimony?
Yes, please. We'll go back to support in Senate Bill of 12. Please remain where you're seated now. I want to remind folks, because we have a lengthy agenda today, if you could please limit your remarks to 2 minutes. I will flag it for you once the 2-minute mark hits. Please, whoever wishing to join us in support on Senate Bill 12 over the phone.
Hello?
Yes, hi. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Hello. Oh, I apologize. Having trouble with the phone system here. Chair Flores, for the record, my name is Ryan Sheltra, and I would like to testify in support of SB 12. I'm a native Nevadan, and I've lived in the city of Reno nearly my entire life. I currently reside in Reno's Ward 5. I believe in preserving the at-large member spot is good. We have to have more than one person that represents us. When we disagree with our ward representative, we still have the at-large individual council member to go to and our mayor, which personally I've done on multiple occasions, and not necessarily because I disagree with my council member, but it's nice having a second point of contact, which throughout the years I've used on many occasions through many representatives. We're a growing city. We need folks not to be so provincial and only focused on one small part of the city. We need to be able to see the bigger picture. And right now, our council members sometimes vote against what's good for Reno because they're so fearful of not getting reelected. Our council must work together. That's the purpose of the at-large seat. They can help build consensus to that goal. I very much want to thank you guys for your consideration of support SB 12. Again, Ryan Sheltre here for any questions.
And Ryan, could I have you spell your last name, please? I think we may.
My last name, Sheltra, Sheltra.
Thank you. BPS, do we have anybody else wishing to join us on the phone in support of Senate Bill 12 in case we may have missed them?
Callers, if you've recently just joined us and you would like to testify in support of SB 12, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you'd like to testify in support of SB 12, please press star 9 now. Chair, it looks like you have no more callers in support at this time.
Thank you. And now we'll go back to those wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 12 here in Carson City. Whoever wishes to go first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Alexis Motorex, representing the Nevada Chapter Associated General Contractors, representing the commercial construction industry in Northern Nevada. We are here today opposed to Section 18 of SB 12 only. The rest of the bill we are neutral on. Green infrastructure projects are not defined in the bill and could be subject to interpretation. This could potentially add to the cost of building in Reno at a time when costs are skyrocketing for a myriad of other reasons. And as it has already been asked and confirmed by Mr. Ciccone, this does not need to be in statute. The city is already looking at implementing measures to address urban heat islands. We respectfully ask that this language be deleted out of the bill because of its ambiguity, the potential to cause confusion, slow growth, and increase costs. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Please. While you get that squared away, we can start with somebody else if you prefer. Please.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Christine Saunders, and I'm the Policy Director with the Progressive Leadership Alliance in Nevada and a Reno resident. While we are fully in support of updating the current gendered language in the charter, we cannot support maintaining the at-large city council seat. As a member of the Nevadans Count Coalition, we spent hours trying to draw maps that accurately represented Reno communities into these 5 districts without breaking up communities of interest, and it was very difficult. Currently, Ward 5 stretches from the California border to UNR, yet the neighborhood right next to UNR, where many students reside, is in Ward 4, alongside the North Valleys and Stead. It is clear that the current system does not represent the residents of Reno, not to mention that many of the current city councilors have not been elected, and they might be more responsive if they were accountable to the community rather than appointed. The at-large seat is more likely to be beholden to their donors than the interests of their community. We urge you to maintain the implementation of the 6 wards and increase representative democracy. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Please.
Oh, can you see this? I have it up here.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Can you guys see this? Because I have it up here.
But what is it you're trying to show us?
I brought a presentation for you to see today as well. It's just a couple slides. I can give them to you after the meeting.
Yeah, please. We're
Okay.
just going
for
to
the
take
interest of
testimony
time.
at this
Okay.
time. No presentations.
All right. So thank you, Chair Flores, members of the Government Affairs Committee. My name is Bill Schrimpf. This is my first time in this building, much less testifying to a Senate committee. I'm a rookie. I'm excited. I'm nervous. If I make a mistake, please correct me. I'm here representing myself, a citizen of the city of Reno. I'm born and raised there. I love it. It's my home. I'm active in the city. I am on a NAB, and I worked as a poll worker in the 2020 general election. I don't represent the NAB or anybody else, though. Senate Bill 12 would change existing laws related to the implementation of the Sixth Ward and the elimination of a redundant and problematic at-large role scheduled to take effect in January 1, 2024. Significant parts of SB 12 boiled down to changing the law in a way that will worsen political representation of the people. This topic received 2 minutes and 15 seconds of airtime at the city council level. I thank this group in advance for the indulgence of a more nuanced and thorough conversation. This committee and a 120-day legislative session is not the place to have these discussions, as most of this conversation should have already occurred and been part of the record. But unfortunately, here I am. Regarding transparency and public notice, I'm not an attorney, but with what I can tell, the Charter Committee was properly noticed regarding public meeting laws. What I'm talking about is actual engagement. In the redistricting process that took place right before the Charter Committee began its work, the city did a wonderful job getting input from the community. They had 3 public meetings. In one of those meetings, they actually had a presentation where they said, hey, the Sixth Ward thing is coming. In the other 2 meetings, it was brought up in public comment and questions. Just a few months later, for a reason that was unclear until today, and I am the one guy who goes and watches the videos on YouTube, it was unclear why this should happen.
And sir, we've hit the 2-minute mark. If you wanted to do your closing remark, I know you are going to be providing the committee with some slides and additional information that will get uploaded to the record. But
Okay.
Whatever your
So,
closing remark is, please.
I appreciate that. So, this Reno City Charter exists in law. The Charter Committee did not provide a reason to council. Council did not provide a reason to the city staff, and the city staff has not provided a reason to this committee to change existing law. More importantly, the city's neglected to engage the community in a meaningful way to ask if existing laws regarding representation should be changed. If the city had complete engagement and active communication regarding this fundamental governance matter, I would not be here today taking up your valuable time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And we look forward to looking at your slides and whatever you prepared for the committee. Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome. Whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Noel Orozco, that is O-R-O-S-C-O. I am the program manager at Silver State Voices, which leads the Nevadans Count Coalition. The coalition's goal was to ensure that all Nevadans responded to the census and participated in the redistricting process that followed. I'm here to express our opposition to SB 12. Our coalition is pleased to see that the bill replaces gender language with gender-neutral language and the green infrastructure projects. Our opposition is strictly against the bill's provision to keep the at-large council member. Although at-large elections have shown to improve diversity in gender representation, particularly in city and school district elections, they tend to work best in smaller, more homogeneous cities. Where at-large elections fall short is the representation of racial and ethnic communities. It actually weakens the representation of these groups. There was and still is a whole movement combating legal barriers that prevent Black, Indigenous, people of color voters from exercising their right to vote. I'm sure this committee understands the movement I speak of. I say this in hopes that this committee can understand why we must remove these regressive voting practices. On paper, this bill seeks to take us back to 2017. In practice, this will take us back to 1964, because at-large districts were common until the passage of the Voting Rights Act. In fact, between the passage of the Voting Rights Act and 2006, there were 322 lawsuits raising Section 2 violations. Of those, 145 involved challenges to at-large districts. That is 45% of lawsuits that were filed during that period. Our coalition recognizes that without this bill, the city is required to redistrict before the 2024 election. We have the utmost faith that the city is more than capable, especially since Reno was the most responsive jurisdiction that incorporated our coalition's feedback. Our coalition monitored the state and congressional, Henderson, Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, Reno, Clark County School District, Washoe County School District, Clark County, Washoe, and Carson City, as well as the Board of Supervisors process. So as it currently stands, we are opposed to Senate Bill 12, and we urge you to vote against it. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us today. Please, welcome.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Sylvia Villanueva. To keep my comments short, I've written them down. So I do want to point out that although I am a City of Reno Planning Commissioner, I am here testifying in a personal capacity, and I speak only on behalf of myself. I am specifically testifying in opposition to eliminating Reno's Ward 6 seat and maintaining the council's at-large seat. I am neutral to the other provisions of the bill. In 2017, this legislature approved eliminating Reno's at-large seat and moving toward a ward-only representation. Backtracking now, before the 2017 legislative changes have gone into effect, would undermine the fundamental principles of representative democracy. According to Truckee Meadows' annual report, our region's population is projected to hit 500,000 by 2024, with the largest population being in the city of Reno. An additional Ward 6 would allow for more direct and equal representation. And what I mean by direct and equal representation is that regardless of whether a specific neighborhood or community within a city turns out to vote in greater numbers than another, the individual wards would have representation proportional to its population, allowing for the goals of democracy to be met. This is particularly relevant in Reno. Specifically, the Truckee Meadows annual report's race demographics depict that population to be 78% white compared to 20% for all other races. Finally, it's no surprise that the last 2 at-large council members were appointed. Citywide campaigns create economic disadvantages and racially inequitable challenges for candidates to win in citywide contests despite having strong support within their neighborhood and ward. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Good afternoon, welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Annette Magnus, and I'm the Executive Director of Battleborn Progress. We strongly oppose SB 12 as written and hope this committee feels the same. We are delighted to see that the bill calls for gender-neutral language and allows for the city to participate in green infrastructure projects. However, we are disheartened to see that the bill does not create a 6th ward and maintains the at-large council member position, which we feel is not best for the community. During the 33rd special session, this body created maps that intended to best represent our communities across the state with their unique priorities and needs. While redistricting can be a good thing if done the right way, and not in a way that sets up a particular section of the economy to fail, this bill is not beneficial, and we urge this committee to oppose the bill.
And thank you for joining us. Good afternoon, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Margo Piskovich. I'm a native Nevada, and I've lived in Reno since I was 8 years old, born in White Pine County. Initially, the legislature passed the 6th Ward in SB 36 in 2017. I would recommend that there be an amendment to this bill to keep the 6th Ward. I'm totally neutral on the other 2. I kind of agree with the lady, though, that talked about the sewer problems and the green stuff, but I don't care one way or the other. Reno is the only city that has an at-large person, with the exception, obviously the mayor's at large. Henderson is now going to be the last city to join wards. And as one gentleman said, these wards or districts came about because of the civil rights movement and the voting rights bills in federal elections. And of course, they were stopped all over. Most people do. I think everybody in all of the states now use districts or wards, including, our legislatures, et cetera. The residents of Reno had no reason to expect that the city might consider changing the plan in less than 1 year. There was no public outreach or engagement, and there was a slim 5-3 majority of the charter committee. 5 of its members were absent, and so to say that there was, a unanimous vote is not correct. There was no public comment on this item. What's really happened in the city of Reno, and I do agree with the mayor, there's a lot of partisan politics in Reno, but this was not a transparent action by the city of Reno. The public meeting was held, but again, it's intended to rebrand the entire city and the legislative action that would alter plans standing for the city representation, supposedly on behalf of the public, but without any public buy-in and any indication of public need or necessity. This was kind of a waste of time and money. I am shocked that our elected representatives or their appointees make these decisions without consulting with the public. And I do believe that we need to just have the 6th district put in place. This also needs to be done very quickly because elections will be coming up, and right now there is no map. So that's one of the reasons I'm suggesting just delete that part of the bill so it can be moved on, or strike it out, whatever.
And ma'am, you've gone over by over 40 seconds. If you could have your closing remark, please.
Well, basically, if you look at the Reno Channel 4 News, there was a lady by the name of Laura Martin, and it says, quote, "It seems like they're wanting to change the whole law to satisfy the needs of 2 people. Our council is divided. There's no question about it. But on the other hand, I've never had a problem calling anybody in any ward in this city. And I think people are responsive, but I do think that there is division in this ward, and at large is not going to change it's not going to change it."
Thank you, ma'am. And if there's any additional remarks you wanted to submit to the committee, please make sure you give that to the staff.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having this hearing. I'm Tony Harsh, and I am a resident of the city of Reno. I also served on the city council from 2000 to 2004. There was a huge discussion at that time and forward thinking that we would eliminate the at-large seat and move on to a 6th seat so that we would be closer to our residents. We do serve our residents, not just the voters, our residents. And in fact, the at-large person at that time was Pierre Heshef, and he was very amenable to saying, "Hey, I'm more than happy to step down. Let's move to this better representation for the city." The city we run as nonpartisan. We are nonpartisan representatives. I promised Mills Lane when I was elected, and he ran an ad, that I would return all my phone calls. I did. I fulfilled that promise. And I don't know what the other council people do, but I had a great time returning those phone calls because I could hear what my constituents were interested in. I also thank you, Senator Daley. I am in your Senate district. I note that we have 15 members on this committee, and I've looked at their minutes, and not many people show up. In fact, you're supposed to call ahead if you're not going to be there, so they're sure to have a quorum. So I don't know. I would be concerned about this committee. And when this was voted on, there were only 8 people attending. Most of the discussions leading up to this, there were a small number of people. It was a 5-3 vote. I would like to read into the record the comments made by one of the members, because I think it explains it very well.
And ma'am, you're over the time. Well, I'll let you read
Oh.
that statement, and then we'll end it with that, please.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it was agreeing with the other ones. The position would ensure the equity is being accounted for in decisions made within all departments of the city. This, I'm sorry, I lost my place. Chair Marshall also agrees with Member Leader that having the additional award would create a significantly lower cost race as compared to the high cost race of an at-large. Chair Marshall also said that it was been as more progressive during the time that at-large positions became more common across the jurisdictions. But in the world today, it is not as progressive, and times have changed. That I believe it is time for that 6th ward. It's way over time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And if we could please have you vacate those seats in case there's other folk trying to come forward to testify in opposition. Please, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Marlene Lockard, and I am representing myself today on this bill. I am strongly opposed to the section of the bill that does away with the 6th ward. Considerable input, time, research was given at the time that this previous legislation was approved to create the 6th ward. And I do not believe there's been adequate discussion to now go back. I'm surprised, as the citizen of Reno since I was 4 years old, that there has not been public discussion on why the change and reverse of opinion. So I would urge this committee not to give consideration to the bill. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. BPS, is there anybody else on the phone wishing to join us in opposition to Senate Bill 12?
If you would like to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 12, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Hello, good evening, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you guys for working so hard. I would also like to thank Chair Flores for being so gracious to the public speakers. I am respectfully disagreeing
Sir,
with
sorry to cut you off. We need you to identify
Yes,
for the
sir.
record, please.
Yes, sir. Sorry about that. My apologies. My name is John Carlo, the young gentleman from Las Vegas, and I'm opposing this bill. I would like the legislators to take into account the scripture from Genesis chapter 1 in verse 26, and this is in regards to gendered language. And this is coming from the Bible. The Bible has been in existence for thousands of years. It has gone untainted. It has gone preserved to this very day, the Masoretic text. And we see that this is the way God speaks. And now, in our modern day, we have people that are changing science. They're changing, there are certain absolute truths in this world. But this is what the Bible says in Genesis 1:26. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. And so we're now creating laws, trying to create laws that go against God. And we are taking this restorative justice thing way too far. You guys need to respect the people of Reno, and people are going to be looking. This is the capital of our state, and you guys are making history. People are going to be looking at Reno and say, what is Reno doing? What does the law say? I'm just saying, follow God, obey him, and listen to the word of God. That's all I have to say. Thank you, guys.
And thank you for joining us. Anybody else wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 12?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Chris Giuntiliani, Giuncigliani. I am speaking in opposition to Senate Bill 12. I do support the gender language changes. The green infrastructure is interesting, but it's not defined not in this charter nor in NRS 278, which is your planning area. Therefore, absent a definition, no one knows what it is they're really talking about. But finally, the meat and potatoes of this bill is to undo the 2017 legislation that finally represented, had individuals be represented by wards. It is an easier way for the public to know they're elected. It's a cheaper in the long run, and it really does balance the inequities that are there, especially racially. The late Justice Ginsburg said it very clearly that at-large positions were a way for incumbent protection, and they actually were more inequitable than award seats. I'm sorry, but it does not compelling to me as an argument that because someone doesn't show up for ribbon cutting is justification to violate what the 2017 legislature put in play and impact negatively the individuals that should have a representative of their own by a award seat. I do urge you to support the gender language, either define green infrastructure or take it out, and finally, to not undo the legislation. Henderson just voted this election to go into wards, and they're the last of our large cities to do so. Thank you very much, and good afternoon.
And thank you. Anybody else wishing to join us over the phone in opposition, Senate Bill 12?
Hello, committee. This is William Mantle for the record.
I'm sorry, can you please repeat your name?
It's William Mantle for the record.
Can you spell your last name, please?
Mantle.
Thank you. Please continue.
Thank you. I am here calling today, and thank you for the time, to voice my opposition to SB 12 only on the repeal of the language for the creation of Ward 6. The other two I'm neutral on, though I favor the removal of gender language more or less. I am curious more so about the green infrastructure action. But to the removal of the Ward 6, the recent redistricting efforts taken by the city have informed all of the public that Ward 6 would be created in this coming year. The whole planning that has been presented to the public has been in that lens, and it feels only just suddenly, without any public discourse or discussion, that this will be pulled out from underneath everyone's feet. So I am personally shocked that this is the method in which they have gone about, and I feel like it is a subversion of the public process, as well as an abuse of the BDR process, because the BDR should be utilized for change that is not available to city councils or other municipalities within their own charters, which this whole process does have an avenue for. So I would urge the committee to please look at that, to understand that the representation of the city, which is growing rapidly, is at risk, and that no one person can easily field a demand from 55,000 people, let alone 38,000, as was referenced earlier. But at least 38,000 is in some way much more digestible than 55,000. I think that the city is ready for a Ward 6, and it's high time that the ward maps be redistricted, because they geographically don't create a great identity in the city as is. I think not that it's the purview of this language, but the anchoring of current members on the council to where the wards must be drawn is also problematic to creating equality and representation properly throughout this. Thank you for your time.
And thank you. Before we go to the next caller, we've now said the same thing, and I appreciate people participating, but if somebody's already stated your opposition, we would appreciate if you did a ditto. We have many more items on the agenda, and if your argument has not been put on the record, please, I encourage you to do so now. But if it's already been stated, you can simply say, I'm in opposition for all the reasons that were stated before me for the purposes of efficiency. No need to say the same thing. And also, our staff would love not having to write the same exact reason that everybody hates it, and I respect that and I appreciate that, but no need to restate the opposition if it's already been stated. We'll continue. Those wishing to speak in opposition to Senate Bill 12.
Chair, your line is open and working, but you have no more callers at this time.
Thank you. Is there anybody on the phone wishing to testify in the neutral position for Senate Bill 12?
If you would like to testify in neutral for Senate Bill 12, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. There are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. Anybody in Carson City or Las Vegas wishing to testify in the neutral position? Good afternoon. Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Flores, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Andrew Diss, and I'm here in my capacity as the former chairman of the Reno Charter Committee. I served on the committee for 8 years, came off in 2020, the last 6 years of which I served as chairman. I was chairman in 2017 when we made the change to eliminate the at-large and create a 6th ward. And I wanted to share the perspective of the committee at the time for why we thought that was a worthy change to make. It was about shrinking that universe of the number of people in Reno that would be represented by a ward member. And part of the process, whenever we come up with ideas that we want to bring forward to the legislature, the Charter Committee, once we finish our work, we have to have a joint meeting with the City Council, and we discuss those changes. And to her credit, Madam Mayor has always felt strongly, as she does, having served in that at-large position, and has always been outspoken against making that change because of how important she thought it was to have that second voice. But the committee thought that, like I said, shrinking that universe, it would allow people to be more responsive to their constituents. Former Councilwoman Harsh, she touched on that, about how important that aspect of the job is. And quite frankly, if you're not being responsive to your constituents, you're probably not going to get reelected. So, in Senator Goicoechea, going back, you had a question about redistricting early on this hearing. The committee was very methodical, taking into account that there was going to be a census in 2020, and there was going to be redistricting happening about that. The city of Reno, in its most recent redistricting, it held a number of workshops. I felt they were very transparent in the process. There was a lot of opportunity for community engagement, and I want to credit the city for doing that. But along with that engagement, there was always an understanding that there would be another redistricting when we eliminated the at-large ward. That was always well communicated to the public, and I feel like the Reno public had an understanding that that at-large seat was going to go away. We were going to have a 6th ward. So, Mr. Chairman, if you or any of the committee members have any questions about how the Charter Committee at the time in 2017 brought this forward, I'm happy to answer them.
And thank you for joining us. Members, any questions? Thank you for coming up. Appreciate it. Anybody else wishing to testify in the neutral position for Senate Bill 12? Seeing none, I'll invite our presenter to please come back up and any closing remarks you may have.
Nick Ciccone, City of Reno. Just wanted to thank all of the folks that had reached out beforehand, letting me know about their concerns. One thing that I did note, and I was hoping I'd be asked by the committee, there is no other city in the state of Nevada that has an at-large member, but there are other cities, or there is another organization. The Washoe County School Board actually has 2 at-large members, and I believe that system's working very well for them. And that has worked very well for us since 1971. So thank you again for all of those that have reached out to me beforehand, and thank you, Chair Flores and Vice Chair Orenshaw.
And thank you for everybody who participated, and thank you for the presentation. With that, we'll go ahead and close out the hearing on Senate Bill 12, and I'll take a quick point of privilege to acknowledge our youngest member in the audience, Mr. Sterling Diss, who also sat with me on the floor. He's a kindergartner doing his thing, rocking a bow tie. Next, we'll open up the hearing on Senate Bill 18, which revises provisions governing required meetings of planning commissions in certain counties. Good afternoon. Welcome whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Flores, members of the committee. For the record, Nick Vanderpool, Flynn Judici Government Affairs, here today on behalf of the city of Fernley, who's brought forth Senate Bill 18. I'm joined today by Fernley Mayor Neil McIntyre, and behind me, Deputy City Attorney Aaron Mortensen, if I need to call a friend. But in a nutshell, this bill came from our Planning Commission under NRS 278.050. Planning commissions are required to meet monthly, and in the city of Fernley, we found ourselves having meetings with nothing on the agenda. In 2021, we had 4 meetings. Again, trying to find a quorum is obviously the hardest part, and to open up a meeting for simply public comment is kind of non-productive, especially for staff. So as I stated, in 2021, there's 4 meetings with nothing on the agenda, and in 2022, 3 meetings with nothing on the agenda. This legislation only impacts counties and incorporated cities with population of less than 100,000. So that's Senate Bill 18. Happy to answer any questions.
Well, we appreciate that. I think that was under a minute. Very impressive. Members, any questions? I think it's pretty straightforward, and if people have any concerns, I'm sure they can address those. But I appreciate the presentation. If I could have you sit back.
Appreciate it, Chairman.
And at this time, I'd like to invite those wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 18.
Thank you, Chair Flores, Vice Chair Orenshaw, and members of the Senate Committee on Government Affairs. For the record, my name is Jennifer Berthiaume, Berthiaume, Government Affairs Manager at the Nevada Association of Counties, or NACO. NACO would like to thank the City of Fernley for this bill that would bring flexibility to counties under 100,000 residents. As such, NACO is in support of Senate Bill 18. Thank you.
And thank you. BPS, do we have anybody on the line wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 18?
If you'd like to testify in support of Senate Bill 18, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, the public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you. Is there anybody on the phone wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 18?
If you'd like to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 18, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. The public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you. Anybody wishing to testify in opposition here in Carson City or Las Vegas? Seeing none, we'll go to those wishing to testify in the neutral position, Senate Bill 18, on the phone. BPS, please.
If you'd like to make testimony in neutrality for Senate Bill 18, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. The public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Anybody wishing to speak in the neutral position for Senate Bill 18, Carson City or Nevada? Seeing none. With that, I think that was the fastest presentation. Any closing remarks you may have? No, we appreciate that as well. I think that's probably the only time that will happen in this committee. The whole thing was probably under 5 minutes. Well done. With that, we'll close out the hearing on Senate Bill 18. And next, we'll open up the hearing on Senate Bill 169, which revises provisions governing master plans. I think Assemblyman Watts was going to be joining us for that, but we might have gone so fast through that hearing that he may not have had a chance to make it through. So, all right, so I'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 169 rather than opening that. We do have some presentations that we wanted to knock out, so we can take advantage of doing that now. So if we could have our presentation for the city of Reno. Or are you ready? Is Fernley ready? All right, let's do it. Presentation on Fernley. Can you do a minute again? We'll go ahead and open up the presentation by Fernley. Thank you.
Good afternoon again, Chairman Flores, members of the committee. Again, Nick Vanderpool for the record with Flynn Judici Government Affairs, representing the city of Fernley. Happy to be here. Joined here with me today virtually is Mayor Neil McIntyre. He's joining us virtually over the weekend. He was a little ill, so out of abundance of caution, the last thing Fernley wants to be remembered for is getting the building sick. So he's joining us virtually. And to my left is Aaron Mortensen, Deputy City Attorney for the with City of Fernley. I'm gonna turn it over to Mayor McIntyre for some opening remarks, and then we're gonna go to Aaron for the presentation.
Yes, good afternoon, Chairman Flores and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Neil E. McIntyre, newly elected Mayor of Fernley, sworn in on December 7th on 2022. It is truly an honor to be able to speak with you. I'm sorry I'm not there in person, but I caught some kind of bug and I certainly didn't want to push that off on anybody there. So for many of you, you may know the history of Fernley, but to those new to the committee who do not, we are unique. We are a growing community that consists of a new population and jobs. But with that growth comes challenges. You'll see from our presentation, Fernley is at a fork in the road. That fork includes supporting housing and economic development. But then the fork is the reality that our city needs to provide services such as public safety and expand and maintain infrastructure. Consolidated tax, or as we call it, C-tax, is a fair share revenue of the community. In our opinion, Fernley is not receiving our fair share of C-tax. All the while, our population represents almost 40% of the county. With C-tax, we believe we can achieve these services, but given there are no clear answers from this body or the executive branch, we continue to be at a fork in the road. I am optimistic and I'm here to work with each and every one of you and your colleagues on Fernley's future. Fernley has great opportunity to deliver to Nevada's growing economy. But I will admit, we do need your help. So with me today, I'll turn it over to Aaron Mortensen, who is Fernley's Deputy City Attorney. So thank you very much, Chairman Flores and committee.
Thank you. Please.
Aaron Mortensen, Deputy City Attorney. I can't promise 1 minute, but I'm going to shoot for 8. And so in the city of Fernley, we incorporated originally back in 2001. When we incorporated, we had 8,830 people living in our city. We were the 19th city in the state of Nevada. Now in 2023, at least in the 2020 census, we're now at 23,000 individuals. So we tripled the population in about 20 years. Additionally, on top of that, we're about 163 square miles. We're about 30 miles east of Reno. And we're growing at about 1.5% annually. We're expected to get to 25,000 individuals by 2027. And then by 2038, we're expected to reach 40,000 individuals. So we're expected to have 5 times the population we started with within 40 years of incorporation. Building permits, as you can see from here, even with having 4 meetings that we didn't have anyone on in 2021, you'll see that there's a big increase in the number of building permits that we've had. There's been a little bit of a decrease over the past few years, but it's basically stayed pretty close to the same. Additionally, we've had a lot of commercial permits with a valuation of about $152,000. As part of this challenge, one of the big things we've had is a diversification of housing stock. In 2022, we built a 72-unit apartment complex, and we have 5 more projects in the works. I apologize for apartments. Those apartments would add up to another 1,100 apartment units if all of those are completed. There's also another 5 projects that we're working on that would create 600 multifamily units, duplexes, and townhomes. Along with that growth, we have begun facing the challenges that come with homelessness. A big part of that project is that the city worked with the county in subawarding a $278,000 ARPA fund for rental, mortgage, utility, and mental health assistance that is helping to cover the city of Fernley. Probably right now our biggest project is the Fernley Lands Bill. As you can see from this map, there are 8 parcels of federal land that are located within the city of Fernley. That we have been, there's actually more than this, but these are the ones we're currently working on getting from the federal government. The hope is to turn these into areas that are economically useful for the city of Fernley, but also improve the quality of life. I was looking at some of the plans for them. One of those areas they were looking at doing some motocross, a motocross arena. Other ones were for hiking trails, horse trails, and OHV trails, as well as parks and other things that would help to kind of beautify the city of Fernley. One of the other challenges that we have is that approximately 60% of the workforce in Fernley actually travels outside of the city to Fernley to work, either in Reno or Fallon or other surrounding areas. And so we're trying to really enliven the small business in the city. Part of that was we just completed about a month ago was a comprehensive economic strategy. And this came with recommendations that we would be working with. Adams Hub and the Shopmade are both small business programs. The one that was really interesting to me actually was the incubator locations. So I didn't know what an incubator location was. And apparently what the plan is there is to develop some kind of building with a lot of units for businesses and then assist businesses, new businesses, in coming into that space and getting their businesses started, charging low rent to allow them to be able to really get off the ground. And once they're off the ground, they can move to other locations in the city, and new businesses, small businesses, can be brought into that incubator location. That seems like a really interesting idea to me and stuck out with the small business plan. Additionally, in May, we're hoping to do a small business resource fair as part of Small Business Month. So another part is the Main Street Beautification Program. What you have here is on the corner just up the street from the City of Fernley office. This is one of those first projects that we put in. The goal here in downtown is to make it more walkable and also more beautiful, so that people are interested in having businesses in this area and also visiting those businesses. So this is one of those first projects that we put together right at the end of our street. Another big project that we're currently working on is the Community Response and Resource Center. Currently, we're looking for funding for that project. It's a 35,000 square foot facility that would provide the community with an emergency hub, childcare, and youth services. Once fully constructed, we're expecting that project to bring 250 construction jobs, as well as 20 permanent jobs when it opens. The goal would be to have 70 childcare spaces for children ages 0 to 5, as well as another 200 children for the after-school program. This would also serve as an emergency center in the case of emergencies and a community gathering area. One of the big successes we had just recently was the Department of Transportation awarded the city a $25 million grant $25 million for the Rebuilding American Infrastructure and Sustainability and Equity, or RAISE grant. And the goal here was to connect Interstate 80 with US Highway 50. I'll show you in the next picture here. The route currently that trucks have to take is this red route. So if they're using the facilities there, they have to go basically partway across town to the roundabout and then cross up through there in order to get over to I-80. With this new connection, once it goes into place, it'll replace all of that detoured traffic with just that blue line, which will definitely decrease traffic at the roundabout and in the city of Fernley, and will also, I think, create a lot of new safety procedures. Here I have a list of basically the biggest employers in the city of Fernley. The city of Fernley is also kind of weird in that we have a few little islands of county inside of the city of Fernley, and on those islands we have Nevada Cement and some other employers that are on those areas, but are still kind of inside of the city of Fernley. Even with this and all of this employment, though, a lot of people are leaving the city of Fernley to work elsewhere, and we're working on bringing a lot of that back to the city. And so as you can see, Fernley is really growing. We're going through a lot of growing pains, and we are working on those, but we've been pretty successful in being able to bring in different kind of housing as well as support for small businesses. And as the city of Fernley continues to grow, we are keeping up with it, and we look for any assistance we can get from the legislature. Thank you so much, Chairman, for allowing us to present today. Do you have any questions?
And thank you for your presentation. Members, any questions? Senator Goycochea, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd be remiss, with the lining of the Truckee Canal, I don't know how many domestic wells you've got in that area. Probably not going to be an issue this year, but down the road, the recharge to those domestics, can you give me a number about what percentage, especially towards Farm District Road? Some of it might be general county, some of it I know is city. And how many domestics have you got there? Or do you supply all the city with water?
No, we have a lot of wells in that area, and that has been an issue. That's currently in litigation, actually. That was heard. The issue with the lining of the Truckee Canal was actually heard in front of the Ninth Circuit last week. And so that's an issue of pending litigation that we're dealing with right now.
So we're waiting for a decision. Thank
We're
you.
waiting for a decision.
Members, any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you for joining us again. And thank you. I think both of you got the record for the shortest presentations in this committee. I do see that we have Senator Doñate here. So we'll go back to Senate Bill 169, which revises provisions governing master plans. Good afternoon, Senator, whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much, Chair Flores, for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 169 this afternoon. For the record, I am Fabian Doñate, representing Senate District 10 in Clark County. During the previous 2021-2022 interim, I had the great fortune of being the vice chair of the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Natural Resources. The committee reviewed many environmental issues, and among them was excessive heat and potential heat mitigation solutions. And as a result of these productive discussions, the interim committee voted unanimously to request the drafting of legislation to require certain local governments to include a heat mitigation element in their master plan. As such, it is my pleasure to present Senate Bill 169 for your consideration. A little bit in terms of the background as to why we came to this proposal. I think many of us can understand that as our planet continues to warm due to climate change, cities are facing more frequent and intense heat waves that pose a serious threat to public health and safety. Heat waves are particularly dangerous for vulnerable populations, such as our elderly, young children, the unsheltered, and those with pre-existing health conditions. As our communities continue to expand and grow, it is important for cities to incorporate heat mitigation elements into their master plans. Heat mitigation elements are interventions that can help reduce the urban heat island effect, which occurs when urban areas are significantly warmer than surrounding rural areas due to human activity. These interventions can include green infrastructure such as urban tree canopies and green roofs, as well as the built infrastructure such as cool roofs, shade structures, and reflective pavements. One important way to provide heat mitigation services is to create cooling spaces throughout the city, and these can be public spaces such as parks, plazas, heat-reflecting buildings that are designed to provide cool shade and cool air during the hottest times of the year. In addition, public buildings such as libraries, community centers, and shopping malls can also serve as cooling centers during heat waves. And then also, as part of general discussions, we recognize that another important heat mitigation service is access to public drinking water. It's important for people to stay hydrated, and having access to free drinking water can help prevent heat-related illnesses. Shade over paved surfaces is another important heat mitigation element that can be added to master plans, and all of this is so that it can absorb heat and make the surrounding area less hotter than it already is. And finally, with regards to urban tree canopies, we understand that the importance of them because trees provide a shade, it absorbs carbon dioxide and releases oxygen, which can improve the air quality and reduce the heat island effect. In conclusion, heat mitigation in cities is critical to protecting public health and safety during heat waves, and by doing so into our master plans such as cooling spaces, public drinking water, and shade over paved surfaces, we can help reduce the urban heat island effect and create more livable cities. It is important for our city planners, policymakers, and residents to work together to ensure that these interventions are incorporated into city planning and implemented effectively. In terms of the bill summary, as you can see in the bill, pre-existing law requires a planning commission to develop a master plan as a comprehensive long-term plan for physical development of cities, counties, and regions. And there are certain elements that they will be required to include. So in this bill, in section 2, it sets forth requirements for heat mitigation elements to be included as part of the master plan. And that's part of the discussions that I mentioned today, which is access to public cooling spaces, public drinking water, cool building practices, and so forth. And the bill does become effective on July 1st, 2023. I want to change it now to allow Ms. Jacobs to present her amendment and some of the discussions that they've had with Chair Watts when he served as the chair for this committee. And so I'll go ahead and turn it over to them.
Thank you, Senator Donate. Good afternoon, Chair Flores, Vice Chair Orenshaw, members of the committee. We thought this would flow nicely because Clark County had worked with Assemblyman Watts when the language came out on this bill. Clark County, as I know, there are other municipalities here who are also working on heat mitigation on behalf of our communities. We too are working on that strategy for us. Our planning department had proposed the amendment, which is up on Nellis, and you should have it there for you. Which really changes this to more of what a master plan is supposed to be, which is a very high-level policy document, and then we can create the right strategies for the local governments, for each of our local governments at the local level when we go to implement that. With the heat element operating as a policy guiding document, I think, and that's why we added in language that we would develop strategies, and that these strategies would include such factors as the ones that Senator Donate had mentioned, but also additional language was proposed to say that we could consider other mitigation measures to address heat in the community. The reason why I asked for that language is because Clark County has begun a program that I was just here last week, actually, on a bill that was before you talking about a fee in lieu of program. We have created another kind of fee in lieu of program for landscaping in Clark County. It is just debuted, where, for example, commercial developer may want to pay a fee into our program as they are developing, and then we can act and we can mitigate heat in some of our older neighborhoods and those most impacted by heat mitigation. So it's operating kind of as a credit system that will help us address heat mitigation as a whole. And that's why we wanted to have some flexibility in this bill as we consider other strategies in addition to the ones proposed in the bill. So that's a very brief overview of why we proposed the amendment, and then I can pass it along to the rest of the presenters.
Good evening. Thank you, thank you, Chair Flores, Vice Chair Orenshaw, and committee members. My name is Suzanne Groneman. I am with the City of Reno, and I oversee our sustainability program. The number of days in which temperatures exceed 95 degrees in Reno is increasing. Between 1970 and 2020, we experienced greater warming of annual temperatures than nearby rural areas, with nighttime temperatures and heat retention increasing in our urban centers. The current Reimagine Reno master plan emphasizes the importance of a healthy urban forest as well. In fact, Reno's urban forestry program is the oldest in the state of Nevada. It also emphasizes reducing the urban heat island through site features such as reflective materials and shade options, as well as the goal of exploring the feasibility of establishing safe centers for residents during periods of high heat. Along with our regional partners, the City of Reno Parks and Recreation, Emergency Management, Development Services, our equity team and community relations teams, and our sustainability team, we work together in strong coordination to address heat mitigation efforts. Under our adopted Sustainability and Climate Action Plan, safeguarding our water resources is also a priority. This ensures that our residents will have clean, safe drinking water in periods of high heat. We're currently undergoing a heat mapping project, and we're using a map that shows us current equity indicators in our analysis. This map shows us areas of Reno with high heat. It also highlights areas with high asthma and high energy burden. Initial analysis shows us a direct correlation between high heat and asthma. The City of Reno must look at heat mitigation and heat management. Heat management includes cooling centers, access to reliable energy, dependable transportation, and safe housing options. Under this bill, heat mitigation efforts will be better defined and will emphasize looking ahead, planning now, rather than reacting to existing threats. Thank you for allowing the City of Reno to participate in this discussion.
Thank you so much. Fabian DeJohn, for the record, just one last final comment is we did receive, during the interim, there was one concern that was requiring heat mitigation elements in master plans, and that could be potentially burdensome for smaller jurisdictions. That is why this bill has a population requirement, so it only applies to Washoe and Clark County. But other than that, we're ready for your questions.
Real quick, I'm presenting.
Hi, welcome from Las Vegas, please.
Yep. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. For the record, I'm Marco Vallada with the City of Las Vegas Department of Community Development's Comprehensive Planning Section and Office of Sustainability. I'm a planning project manager and the lead for the city's 2050 master plan and its development between 2019 and adoption by Planning Commission and City Council in mid-2021 and oversee its subsequent implementation. I'd also like to acknowledge Las Vegas Councilwoman Nancy Bruni, representing Ward 6 of the city. Prior to her election last year, Dr. Bruni lent her experience on heat's impact to the community to the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Natural Resources during the interim. As was mentioned by Senator Donati, Senate Bill 169 provides direction to cities and counties for their master plan to include that urban heat mitigation element. And I'd like to briefly share with you what we've been doing at the City of Las Vegas in this respect with urban heat island mitigation. When we embarked on developing this master plan for the next 30 years, there are a number of objectives that we wanted to make sure that we hit, and among them, develop a concise plan that addressed all the statutory requirements and addressed the provisions that we've been hearing quite a bit about during public outreach. And when we were going through the planning process with respect to sustainability and natural environment, as is considered under the conservation and safety elements under NRS 278-160, we identified issues that were specific to the city itself, perhaps more pronounced in areas and neighborhoods around downtown Las Vegas, but impacted the entire region as a whole. And that's the drought, obviously, the flash flooding, and extreme heat. With the Mojave Desert, desert heat is a geographic fact that's obviously known, but the difference that we've noticed together in partnership with the county and other local and regional entities is that it's exacerbated by the urban heat environments producing the urban heat island effect. And that's common in cities all across the country, and each have gone about addressing it in their own context and geographically oriented methods. And the response of Las Vegas and Southern Nevada is going to be different from that of Reno, and most of those responses may be different from inside the 215 Beltway or McCarran Boulevard versus outside of them, and they may even be different from what is addressed in a place like Lake Tahoe. When we add in other layers like demographics and socioeconomics, the urban tree canopy coverage, building construction, and other built and natural environment variables, it becomes very apparent very quickly that there's more of an impact on certain parts of the urban area, and that can creep over political boundaries. And in our case in particular, when we overlaid those data sets and mapped them out, we found that neighborhoods like East Las Vegas and the historic West Side have higher vulnerability and less capacity to adapt. And there is that concern that with time and changing climatic conditions, including anticipated temperatures increasing 2 to 8 degrees higher than average, the impact of that urban heat island effect to neighborhoods and local communities can get much worse, ranging from the financial cost to the public health toll. The 2050 plan's goals broadly discuss and how we deal with an issue like that, but given the realm of possibilities that could be involved with, without the statutory language for plan guidance, much of the plan's content is relatively high level, but it lacks some of the details on how specifically to mitigate and respond to the heat events, and SB 169 would address that. And for example, maintaining critical functions given the grid electrical load, the potential harm to electrical and grid infrastructure, public transit operations, economic activity that occurs outdoors. How we respond is also a big issue for the local governments and emergency responders. Preparing city facilities to be cooling centers or ensuring that there's shelters with trained staff to address at-risk populations like the homeless, seniors, and children, and developing communication to the public at large and to utilities about how we address. All those things have to be considered, and we really do need a plan to address that. We also found out, from the complementary effort that we did with Councilman Olivia Diaz that represents Ward 3 of our city in East Las Vegas, which is more than 60% Latino, and the median household income is about $30,000. The community overwhelmingly wanted to see more trees planted. So because our plan is implementation oriented, our council did follow through with some additional measures in the form of a resolution to create more tree planting, to develop this urban heat mitigation plan and urban forestry inventory, which is about to go to bid and would include heat mitigation aspects, and then adopting SNWA's regional plant list as a minimum standard for drought-tolerant tree species. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that we had been working closely with other entities like the county, RTC, SNWA, the health district, as well as our academic institutions, UNLV, Desert Research Institute, University of Nevada, Reno, as well as from the federal level, and NOAA and the National Weather Service. And the takeaway from working collaboratively has been that there's more that we need to do. So as we discussed at the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Natural Resources and the presentations and testimony, this bill does address the component in NRS 278 and specifically the urban forestry shading and the other strategies that allows for contemplation on how a city or county would specifically address aspects of the urban heat island effect that are otherwise silent, and they're a big component of urban heat mitigation. And in short, this bill would provide that additional direction to us for the planning process. Thank you, and I'll turn things back.
Thank you for the presentation. Members, any questions? Senator Goicoechea, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And even though this is a lot of oversight and a lot of planning, there is no true oversight or hammer in this. I mean, you're going to come up with a plan and figure out how we're going to do it, plant a few more trees, get a little more shade, but there's nobody going to really enforce the plans as they are submitted, correct? Other than the county, maybe on the cities? Is that the right way to look at it?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair Flores, to Senator Goicoechea. I mean, essentially, yes, the master
I could
plan.
just have you state your name for the record.
Joanna Jacob, sorry. Joanna Jacob for Clark County. I'm sorry, Chair Flores. Essentially, yes, the master plan sits as a community adopted. We have hearings on the master plan, and then we implement it. So who's going to oversee it? I would say that's going to be overseen by our Board of County Commissioners, and that'll be done, and also the city councils, and I'll defer to Mr. Vallada down there. But I would. That's really going to be how these things are implemented in the local jurisdictions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Marco Vallada, City of Las Vegas, for the record, through the chair to you, Senator Goicoechea. Again, it comes down to the local governments themselves as to how they see fit to implement. That could mean, in terms of implementation, funding capital projects. So for the planting of trees, it could mean amending the zoning code to specifically address urban heat island strategies from a built environment standpoint. How much of a space should be covered? It all depends on how the local government chooses to go about it, and this plan would help specify what to look for.
Thank you. Next, we have Senator Daly, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And you were hitting on some of the questions that I had. Obviously, we need to try to do something, but my concern, when you say you want to shade paved areas, and I know local jurisdictions can approve it through conditions they put on use permits, et cetera. I mean, they have a lot of tools, but there's no real specification in here on how much of a shaded area, what are we talking about? Because unless you built a cover over a parking lot, you couldn't shade it. You could plant trees, but it's not going to shade the whole day. The sun moves, or the planet rotates. Excuse me, the sun doesn't move, but the planet rotates. Any idea on how that's going to be enforced? Obviously, you could. The billboard industry would love to provide. No, I'm kidding. We don't want more billboards either, right? So what's the real plan? I mean, you're not going to be able to shade all paved areas. I know maybe it's just the walkways. You can say shaded areas like we already have for bus stops, drinking fountains, whatever. Those things can be conditioned. But if you got a parking lot for a box store, you'd have to plant a lot of trees to shade the entire thing. So I didn't know what the plan was or what people are thinking. And I don't want some local government to go crazy with it either and put so many restrictions on it that nothing can be done.
Thank you so much, Senator Daley. Fabian Iñarte for the record. So I think in general, when we were creating this this proposal during the interim, and I can let the city and other jurisdictions speak for themselves as well. Our goal was, when we were having presentations as to the negative effects of heat, right, and who that disproportionately impacts, there was a map that we saw where in Las Vegas, if you look at certain jurisdictions or parts of the city, for instance, East Las Vegas and North Las Vegas would have less of a tree canopy than other parts of town. And so I think as part of the amendment is that would be all at stake, right? You would have the ability to look at how you can incorporate it more in the residential areas or incentivize it there. Or you can look at the design of how streets are as we're repaving them and as more construction is happening. How do you start to incorporate this as part of the overall plan? I think we would be remiss if we started requiring that certain parts of the pavement have to be covered by a tree canopy. I think that's not the intent of this, because what works in East Las Vegas might not work in Washoe County, right? So I think in general, we want to make sure that all of us are all on the same page and that we're incorporating these aspects. How that looks like is part of the accountability piece that the local cities jurisdictions would fall into. But if Joanna wanted to.
Joanna Jacob from Clark County for the record. That's really, Senator Daley, thank you for that comment. It's actually one of the reasons why we proposed the amendment, because we've taken some feedback from our entire community about tree canopy, and certainly it does not work, to your point, to cover a whole parking lot. It might not work in all jurisdictions, which is why when I spoke to the program, for example, that we're kind of giving some thought to what we could do to address some of the disparities that Mr. Vallada talked about in his study, and what we've been doing as part of our all-in initiative for Clark County is to kind of say, okay, maybe commercial development, it wants to do a fee in lieu of, so that we can address tree canopy in another part of town, or those things, so we have an overall net effect. That's just one thing that we've been looking at. What this bill will do will allow us to keep the planning to see how we can do that in collaboration with all of the community members and the business members as well in our community. And that's an important part of the planning process, that I don't have a planning background. I'm just kind of relaying this anecdotally from what I heard from my planning department, but this is the intent really of incorporating that language about the other strategies, because the strategies could be different from the city of Las Vegas. They could be different in North Las Vegas. They could be different for Clark County or for the city of Reno as well. And that's why we're looking to see how we can do that as part of a public process and input from everybody, really. And I hope that addresses some of your question. I think that it's going to again, this is high level, and then we're going to work out the devil's in the detail, of course. And we certainly, that's one example of what we're trying to do to address that question, where it might not be feasible to do tree canopies in all parts of our community. Thank you.
Follow, please.
And thank you. And I was hoping, and thank you, Senator, for the explanation. I figured that was probably how it was going to be met. I don't think you can cover every parking lot or every street, and obviously we have a lot of paved roads that don't have some of that. And I know older areas of town versus newer areas of town, especially in Reno, have more trees, more older trees, et cetera. And as you develop, people plant trees in various things. and maybe there's a study or something that says, you know, you don't have to cover all of it if you cover a percentage of it or at different times of day as things, you know, move, because like I say, they're, you know, different types of shade, at least breaks it up. I don't know if there's a study that shows you can get the same effect even if it's not 100% covered. If you're hitting parts of it at different times of day, that will make the difference. But I just didn't want to see, you know, a project, you know, be slated and somebody, you know, doesn't like it, so they use the heat canopy and says, nope, you got to cover everything, or we're going to condition that you have to be 80% covered, you know, 90% of the time. I'm sure those guidelines will develop, and as they go forward, and if you guys do it right, you won't hear from us again, right? But if it goes overboard, you'll probably hear from us again.
Vice, I'm not sure if I skipped you on accident. Did you have any questions? Okay, please, Vice.
Thank you very much, Chair Flores. Thank you, Senator Doñate, for your work during the interim on this important issue. As you know, I think the chair and Senator Doñate and I know, our side of town, summer afternoons, it's like a heat battery where the concrete just soaks up the heat and then radiates it all night. So I really appreciate your work on this. And I guess one question I have with the language of the amendment for the language about with preference for native tree species. You know, down in southern Nevada, palm trees are very popular and they're beautiful to look at, but they don't provide a ton of shade, and from what I've heard, they really use a lot of water. And I know that, you know, they're not native to our part of the country, but I'm just wondering if as part of the heat mitigation, we are looking at preference for native tree species. Do you think that will still provide the heat mitigation that we need? Because, like, you know, I'd like to see a lot of the palm trees replaced with trees that give us more shade and don't use as much water. You know, certainly they're very decorative in certain places. You know, they're part of that Las Vegas feel and theme. But I think in a lot of areas, maybe they're not the preferred tree for us to try to get that heat mitigation we need. So thank you. And if that's a question you'd rather follow up with me offline, that's fine too.
Chair Flores, Joanna Jacob from Clark County. For the record, through you to Vice Chair Orenshaw, I would like to follow up with you afterwards if we could, but I'll try and address it. And then, of course, also defer down to the planning professional down in Grant Sawyer. But I think that was the intent of our amendment. The language that you're pointing to is actually the original language in the bill and some of the recommendations that came out of the committee. So I'd like to probably talk about that concern with Assemblyman Watts about that in the conversations that happened over the interim. But I will say, the intent of the amendment was to give us a little more flexibility. The language of the original bill was it must include these things, and we've changed the language to say such factors as and other mitigation. And if we need to give ourselves a little more flexibility on that, your point is well taken. I think that obviously we do have significant water concerns, and that's why Assemblyman Watts is not here, because there's a bill being heard upstairs in Natural Resources on that issue. So I think we can certainly follow up with you afterwards on that concern, and I'll see if Mr. Vallada has any. That don't mean to throw it to him, but he may have a better response and more planning-centered response.
Marco Vallada for the record, to the chair, to you, Mr. Vice Chair Orenshaw. So you're correct. There are definitely different species that provide different attributes. You know, canopy, in terms of canopy coverage, it's getting the right species, and I think the intent of the amendment is exactly as Ms. Jacobs described. It's lending preference to the native, and maybe the other word is adaptive species, those that are appropriate for the environment, whether you're in the Great Basin, whether you're in southern Nevada in the Mojave Desert, or you're in, you know, the Tahoe Basin. It might be a little bit more dependent on geography and what might make sense. And there are some species in southern Nevada that are really water efficient, that provide a lot of good shade, that are low maintenance. Those are the ones that we're trying to plant and pursue in public parks. And there's others that absolutely don't work and they'll die in the heat, and we want to avoid planting them. Some, it comes down to function versus aesthetics, and I think that's what this heat island mitigation element would tackle and could be addressed depending on what part of the state you live in.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you, Ms. Jacob. Thank you, Senator.
Members, any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you for the presentation. And next, we'll invite those wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 169. If you could please come forward, Carson City or Las Vegas. Good afternoon, welcome. Whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Annette Magnus, and I'm the Executive Director of Battleborn Progress. We are here today in strong support of SB 169 as amended. Nevadans are already living through climate change. Heat waves, drought, air pollution. Climate change is already affecting our health, our environment, and the ability to make a living wage. Low-income Black, Indigenous, and Nevadans of color are especially suffering, living in areas with hotter temperatures, dirtier air, fewer green spaces, and higher energy bills. But it doesn't have to be this way. As Nevada makes plans to fight the climate crisis, this body must consider creative solutions like this that will address heat mitigation and other jarring effects of the climate crisis we are facing today. SB 169 is one of the necessary steps to ensure that Nevadans today and future generations are able to flourish in our great state while reducing heat island risks. We do echo the question that Senator Goycochea had, and we believe that the next step will be to have real oversight on the implementation of this bill. According to our Breathe Free Nevada report, Nevada's communities of color are the most impacted by the climate crisis. This report addresses the concerns shared by this committee, and we will be happy to share it with the committee. We don't have time to waste, and we must have plans to mitigate this issue. We urge this committee to support SB 169. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Anyone else wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 169 in Carson City? Seeing none, we'll go to Las Vegas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Yasmin Pelaez, Y-A-Z-M-Y-N, P-E-L-A-E-Z for the record, and I'm here on behalf of the Nevada Conservation League. Nevada is home to two of the fastest warming cities in the country, Las Vegas and Reno. The typical number of heat wave days in Nevada is projected to increase even more to around 55 days a year by 2050. Extreme heat events can be dangerous to health, even fatal, and the number of heat-related deaths and illnesses continue to increase year after year. While all Nevadans are impacted during extreme heat events, impacts are not evenly distributed. Extreme heat poses higher risks for low-income communities and communities of color, as the effects of urban heat islands make temperatures in predominantly Black and brown neighborhoods even hotter than surrounding areas. This problem will only continue to get worse unless we take action. It's critical that local governments proactively address extreme heat and mitigate its impacts to protect public health and our communities. We urge the committee's support on this important legislation. Thank you.
And thank you. We'll come back to Carson City, please. Please.
Sorry, I didn't know if you were finished in Vegas. Chair Flores and members of the committee, my name is Jaina Moan, Jaina-Moan, and I am the External Affairs Director for the Nature Conservancy in Nevada. We support SB 169 to require heat mitigation strategies and master plans. The Nature Conservancy supports policies that will help our community adapt to the effects of climate change. Research conducted by Climate Central shows that Las Vegas and Reno are two of the fastest warming cities in the country. Planning for heat and finding ways to reduce and mitigate adverse impacts is essential to maintain quality of life in rapidly warming cities. Additionally, it is an opportunity to address areas that need heat mitigation the most. There are many innovative ways to deploy nature and nature-based solutions to cool areas affected by urban heating. We appreciate that urban tree canopies are included in the heat mitigation requirements. Other community greening efforts, such as low-water landscaping and community or personal gardens, can also have a cooling effect in underserved neighborhoods that are most impacted by heat. Thank you so much for considering our support for SB 169.
And thank you for joining us. Anybody else wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 169? BPS, do we have anybody joining us on the phone?
If you'd like to testify in support of SB 169, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Hello, Chair Flores and members of this committee. My name is Nick Christensen. I'm a volunteer member of Sierra Club's Nevada Legislative Committee, and on behalf of the club and our members and supporters statewide, I'm speaking in support of SB 169. The urban communities in the state of Nevada are growing at an alarming rate. As others have already mentioned, Las Vegas and Reno are the two fastest warming urban areas in the country. So it is critical that we admit this reality and take sensible steps to respond to it. SB 169 is one of these steps, and we support it. And in response to Senator Daley's question, one thing that we would like to see is having those surface parking lots covered with solar panels, which would provide both power back to the community and provide heat mitigation as well. Thank you for your time.
And thank you for joining us. Anybody else wishing to join us on the phone? Senate Bill 169 support.
Good afternoon, Chairman Flores and members of the committee. This is Cynthia Moore, CINTHIAMOORE, and I'm the Coalition Coordinator for the Nevada Environmental Justice Coalition. We are in support of SB 169, and I just want to diddle a lot of what other folks have said. We believe that this type of planning is critical for various communities that the NEJC works with and is a necessary step in the right direction for achieving environmental justice in Nevada. Thank you so much.
And thank you for joining us. Anyone else on the phone?
There are no callers choosing to testify at this time, Chair.
Thank you. We'll move to those wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 169. BPS, we'll start with the phone. Anyone else logging in?
If you would like to testify in opposition to SB 169, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. The public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you. Anyone in Carson City or Las Vegas? Seeing none, we'll go to those wishing to testify in the neutral position for Senate Bill 169. We'll start with Carson City. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Alexis Motorex with the Nevada Chapter Associated General Contractors. And I just want to clarify, we are opposed to the bill as written, but neutral with Clark County's amendment as presented, as it provides that flexibility for each local jurisdiction to establish their plans.
And thank you. Anyone else in Carson City? Seeing none, BPS, anybody in the neutral position for Senate Bill 169?
If you would like to testify in neutrality for Senate Bill 169, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. The public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you. Senator Doñate, any closing remarks? None? Thank you. And with that, we'll go ahead and close out the hearing on Senate Bill 169. And next, we'll move to our presentation from the City of Reno. Good afternoon. Welcome whenever you're ready.
Well, good evening, Chair Flores, Vice Chair Orenshaw, members of the committee. I am Doug Thornley. I'm the city manager of the City of Reno, and I hear your plea for brevity this evening, so we will hustle. We appreciate the opportunity to spend just a few minutes with you here this evening and tell you a little bit more about the biggest little city in the world. We are the third largest, according to the 2020 census, city in the state of Nevada. We have a council manager form of government. We have a mayor, we have an at-large member who serves as the pressure relief valve, and then we have 5 representatives who represent the 5 distinct wards of our cities. I am helped by a tremendous team but there are 3 assistant city managers who oversee the myriad functions of the city. Who are folks, you know, we have a little more than 1,400 full-time employees, and that number grows seasonally to north of 1,700, closing in on 1,800 with our Parks and Recs folks who work for us during the summertime. We work hard to implement the vision of our city council through a strategic plan that has 6 primary goals. Working from left to right, we're very proud to have passed a balanced budget last year for the first time in City of Reno in about 15 years. We've restructured and paid down a tremendous amount of debt over the last decade, and we're thrilled to be here in front of you today telling you that we are on track to propose and pass a balanced budget again this year. Our police and fire services and public safety are a priority of ours, whether that relates to hiring or capital expenditures. We're very proud of the new public safety center that is adaptive reuse of the old RGJ building that will open in the summer of 2024. Housing affordability, you're going to hear a little bit more about later on in our slide deck, but that has been an area of particular pride for our council. We're leaders in the region, and we will continue to be leaders in the region with respect to both our policies and our investment in that space. I don't want to spend too much time on master plans. You just spent time hearing about them, but the regional plan, the master plan, they guide us in terms of our planning decisions and where we make infrastructure investments and how our city grows and how we deliver services. And of course, we are always working to provide those services and build those facilities in a way that is sustainable for our community. So with that, I told you a little bit about the numbers of our team. Tell you a little more about them. All in, our budget is about $915 million. Most of that is, of course, made up by enterprise funds, so fees that we collect directly for the provision of services. We have 18 departments. I want to highlight just one group right now. They have been working so hard since New Year's Eve. Our public works, our maintenance and operations folks have done just a fabulous job of clearing roads of snow and ice and making sure that water can flow through our conveyance systems so that we're not flooding. They have worked 12-hour shifts almost 3 months now, and they are just killing it. And so I don't know that any of them are watching today, but we're very proud of them, and they are a very proud group, and they work extremely hard, and I think they deserve some recognition here tonight. This is our general fund. It is made up primarily of C-tax, with property tax being another primary component. About 38% of the general fund is C-tax and 26% is property taxes. But we spend about $33 million a year in grants, and we aggressively pursue those grants. They're important in areas that the public really does see a difference in those services. So whether that's housing and rental services, public safety, arts, recreation programs, or general infrastructure that makes the biggest little city not just livable, but lovable. You know, the provision of grants by the federal government and other entities is important to us with respect to getting our work done. In terms of expenses, like every other city, like every other government agency that comes before you, we don't build widgets, we provide services. And so because we are a service-driven organization, about 72% of our expenses are from salaries and benefits. We build our budget around what's important to the city council and the priorities that they set as borne out in the strategic plan and the policy decisions that they make. But one of the opportunities that we have as an organization is to be mindful of the changing demographics of our city and make sure that we're providing services in a way that reflects sort of our modern population. And so one of the things that we've done to keep that top of mind and make sure that there is a voice at the table in every decision-making process in Reno is create the position of Chief Equity and Community Relations Officer. And it is my pleasure to introduce to you Cynthia Esparza, who occupies that role for us and does a fabulous job leading that conversation.
Thank you so much. Chair Flores, Vice Chair Orenshaw, members of the committee, Cynthia Esparza, Chief Equity and Community Relations Officer for the City of Reno, for the record. Really appreciate the time and opportunity to share what the city is doing. As was mentioned, we are the third largest city in the state of Nevada, and our community is vibrant and growing, just like many other areas in the state. Our population has grown significantly over the past decade alone, and looking at our current population is estimated at around 265,000 residents, and the 2020 census really highlighted that growth, which was 17% overall. Most notably, our demographics are also shifting. Reno is very different compared to what it was 30, 40 years ago. Similar to trends in Southern Nevada, a quarter of the population self-identified as Hispanic or Latino, and overall, the proportion of the city's population among the Asian Pacific Islander community, Black community, also significantly grew within the last decade. Understanding the needs of our growing diverse community, we want to ensure every member of our community has the potential to reach their full potential and be reflective and responsive to all our community needs. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is a priority for the City of Reno, and I'm honored to serve in that capacity. This will lead the work that we do for many years to come, and working closely with Manager Thornley. We have numerous conversations throughout the week, as whether it's a policy decision, a program, a new fee, really bringing a different lens to the table when we talk about those matters, really integrating a macro equity lens overall to the organization. I'd also like to highlight that we have augmented staff support for more diverse communities, specifically when we talk about language. We have an inclusive communications staff member who not only focuses on Spanish communications, but also augmenting what that looks like outside the city, and providing innovative ideas for sharing information. At the same time, we have a community relationships manager whose role is really developing those relationships with the community and building trust, which is something that is invaluable as we work with everyone. Through these roles, we have augmented what our public engagement processes look like, and we're able to be more proactive. As an organization, we're also committed to building capacity among our staff internally. One of the approaches we took was the development of the One City, Many Voices speaker series, where we have welcomed numerous community members to the city to provide talks on a variety of issues and topics, identities, and to really increase awareness, but also provide a space to ask questions. That series will be continuing into this year. We're very excited about that. But what I'm really excited about is this year is the year that we are updating our equity plan. We have started working on those efforts, and the plan will guide us for many years to come. And I'll turn it over to Doug.
Again, Doug Thornley for the record. Mrs. Esparza is being modest. She is the architect of so many good things that we are doing. And when we have the opportunity to say so publicly, I think it's important that we take that chance. So thank you, Cynthia, for what you've done for our community and our organization. What you see on the slide that's up on the screen right now is a map from the regional plan and the cover of the city's master plan. They represent sort of a multi-layer approach to how the Truckee Meadows and how the city of Reno in particular will develop and provide services for many years to come. The regional plan is important because it is adopted by every jurisdiction in the Truckee Meadows, so not only the city of Reno, but the city of Sparks and Washoe County as well. And it expresses a clear preference for a more compact land use pattern. That preference is also mirrored in the city's master plan, where we talk about many of the things that this committee just spent some time on with respect to the effects of urban heat islands and the impacts of urban sprawl. But mostly what we're looking for in our implementation of the regional plan and the master plan is a way for us to deliver high-quality services to our community in a sustainable way. Some of our challenges there relate to how we deal with wastewater. extremely proud of the work our engineers have done in that space. They've identified a number of options for disposal of wastewater in a unique environment. So we are dealing with closed basins here in the north, and that presents some challenges that perhaps aren't necessarily quite as well understood down in Clark County. And so one of the things that we're looking at right now is a project that won the American Society of Civil Engineers Project of the Year Award for 2021. It's an advanced purified water facility where water will be cleaned to drinking water standard and then injected into the ground to be held in an aquifer for reuse at an appropriate time. That's taking place and being developed out in the North Valleys, which of course will help us manage not only our sanitary sewer wastewater, but other waters as well, and will have a positive impact on our stormwater management practices in that space. We're also concerned with how people move around our city. The dependence on cars runs the gamut from the effects of urban heat islands to housing affordability, and so making sure that we have safe and efficient methods of transportation or opportunities for people to move around and experience our community is also top of mind for us. And so, like so many things, you don't always get it right the first time, but we've been piloting ideas in that space to see what works for Reno and see what we might be able to build into our streetscape standards and our standards for building roads around our communities. Thrilled that with the completion of the Virginia Street placemaking study last month, we'll be able to take some of the information that we learned from our most recent effort at this and build it into a plan that ideally will make folks less car dependent in Reno, and we'll be able to get them downtown and helping businesses and connecting the university to Midtown and other places where people like to recreate. So with that, I'd like to turn it actually back over to Mrs. Oh, no, I'm out of order. I'm sorry. Thanks, Nick. Yeah. And the reason I mention from my talking points that we're trying to get folks into areas that they like to recreate is that is consistent feedback that we hear from our community. One of the reasons people enjoy living in Reno and the Truckee Meadows is the access to outdoor recreation and the ability to spend time in places that are temperate and easy to enjoy at all times of the year. And so I'm thrilled to encourage active lifestyles in Reno as well. One of the things that our city council has done is made a generational investment in the new Moana Springs Aquatic Center. I think we're on the order of, well, just the same as the Public Safety Center. We're hopeful that this is going to open in summer of 2024. It's multiple pools. We appreciate support from the community in this space, particularly the Pennington Foundation, who kickstarted the fundraising effort and sort of lit a fire under us to turn over couch cushions and find a way to pay for it. We're constantly looking for ways to fund and maintain our parks and infrastructures, just parks and trails infrastructure, just like every other city that comes in front of you. I also think that we've really started to look at parks and our outdoor spaces and the places where people congregate as an economic development tool, sort of highlighting the attractiveness of the region for new businesses and why folks would want to make investments in our community. Just like other communities that you've heard from, we struggle with challenges related to homelessness as well. Our unhoused population, I think, as a community, we took sort of a scattershot approach to how we could best provide services to that population. And under the leadership of Ms. Esparza, we've come up with a program that we do think is a leader in the space and is unparalleled in the state.
Perfect. The city has had Clean and Safe for a couple of years. We did take a pause during COVID, but Clean and Safe is a key program internally that is really serving our unsheltered community throughout the city of Reno. We do this through an interdepartmental team. We have 2 staff members, but we are comprised of various staff members from across the city that work together, and they are a phenomenal group of individuals who lead with compassion and empathy, understanding, but could also, nudge a little if needed. And I don't know how they do this, but they could convince people to, utilize services and get assistance with IDs and or social security cards, which have been instrumental in accessing numerous services. The program leads with outreach to provide services to those that are seeking assistance while also balancing the need of the larger community and keeping our public spaces clean and safe, whether it's our parks or any other space that's accessible to the community. We do this with our staff, but we also have contracted service providers who lead with a lens of lived experience and peer-to-peer support. Very fortunate to work with the Reno Initiative for Shelter and Equality, the Karma Box Project, and also Join Together Northern Nevada, who each bring a unique lens to the work we're doing. This work is, it could entail housing arrangements, ID replacements, employment, family reunifications, and working with numerous community partners. To highlight a couple numbers from last year, there were 244 housing arrangements that were conducted through this team, 180 ID replacements, so that's IDs, Nevada IDs and social security cards, 60 family reunifications, and 96 services accessed. While the shelter operations have transitioned from the city of Reno to Washoe County, I do want to stress that we play an important role and we are committed to this work and work very closely with our partner agencies, whether it's through the annual point-in-time count or working with just additional programming. We're one team and we can't do this alone. On the flip side, with the transition, what it has allowed us is to reassess city resources and redirect our focus to housing affordability, which is a top priority for the city, and we join countless other communities in creating affordable housing solutions. We recognize that one shoe does not fit all. It's a very complex issue, and we need to take various approaches and innovative ideas as well. The immediate lead, of course, is to house individuals, but longer-term solutions of building more supply is a key piece of that. The City of Reno City Council has made significant investments to augment these options, and I'd like to highlight a few. The first one, rental assistance. Nearly $15 million has been infused into rental assistance and housing support through the Housing and Neighborhood Development Division. This is a very critical piece to the work Clean and Safe is doing as well, because as they interact with community members who recently became unhoused or on the verge of becoming unhoused, are able to divert the situation and help facilitate that process of applying for deposit assistance and or rental assistance. This has been accomplished through CARES funding, of course, and ARPA funding, but really looking at taking care of urgent needs. Additionally, 3 projects are moving forward right now, and I'm happy to share that that $7.5 million figure is now $8.5 million based on a decision council made last week that will provide additional affordable and workforce housing units, including veteran housing. So with those 3 projects that we'll be moving forward, that is adding 143 additional units to our region, which we're very excited about. We'd also like to give a big thanks for the state's Homing Nevada program, which granted the city of Reno $166.6 million. So thank you very much for that. Similarly, when we look at building and sewer reduction fees, the city council has made it a priority and a policy decision to further support the construction of affordable housing units by reducing and waiving certain building permits and sewer connection fees to help with housing affordability. This, of course, is because of the authority the legislature provided in 2019. So thank you for facilitating that process for us. When we look at affordable housing and units, the city of Reno continues to be a leader in our region, and when it comes to affordable housing, with approximately 87% of income-restricted units, in 2021, they were located within the city of Reno. We continue to work closely with the Home Consortium, who was recently awarded $5 million through ARPA, and is reviewing applications as we speak today. So very exciting news there. And lastly, When we look at development incentives, as requested by City Council, we're looking at our zoning code, and we'll be bringing forth policy suggestions to further support housing affordability. So really, we're taking a multi-pronged approach to addressing a very complex issue. We're very proud of the work we're doing. And we're also currently working with the author of The Affordable City, Shane Phillips. So we are hopeful that that will help drive additional innovative ideas for housing within the city of Reno. Overall, significant investments have been made in the last 5 years in this space, from utilizing and prioritizing CARES funding, ARPA funding, through the Home Consortium, and usage of bonds as well. It's over $100 million, if I'm not mistaken. Approaching, yeah, so significant progress there.
Doug Thornley, City Manager, City of Reno, once more for the record. That does bring us to the end of the presentation that we have prepared for you this evening. Mr. Ciccone is in the building every day, and we hope he's a resource to all of you, and we're happy to participate in the process. Thrilled to be here, and love to answer any questions if there are any.
And thank you, and I really appreciate you adding the conversation around affordable housing. I know it's a never-ending combo, and I appreciate that being included in the slides. We'll open it up for questions. Members? I always look at you, Senator Goycochea. You always sneak one in there. I thank you also for waiting. I know and I realize that it was a very long meeting today, so I appreciate your patience in hanging out with us a little bit longer than anticipated. Thank you for the presentation, and I look forward to continue to work alongside of your team. I think we have very honest, transparent conversations, and we hope to continue to have that relationship with the City of Reno, and hopefully we can find some other areas where we can work together, not just on your own charter bill, but in general, that we can continue to collaborate, reach out, and as issues arise, please utilize us as a resource as well to you. So thank you for the presentation. With that, we'll go ahead and close out the presentation by the City of Reno. And lastly, I'll invite those wishing to join us for public comment. Seeing none in Carson City or Las Vegas. Oh, please. Good afternoon, welcome.
So I'm Jared Horn. I'm an intern with UNR, and I was just looking to express my support for more work on Fernley. I was a former Fernley resident throughout middle school and high school, and I think that they've been growing a lot faster than they've really been able to handle. And I think that some support from the state legislature to assist them in transitioning into being a bigger city would be well appreciated. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. And I'm sure Senator Goycochea can have a bunch of conversations with you off the record. Understood. Do we have anybody on the phone wishing to join us for public comment?
Public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
And thank you, and as always, appreciative of our staff. With that, members, we will be back here on Wednesday, and it is, again, our intention this week for us not to meet on Friday, so that everybody can plan accordingly with their families. This meeting's adjourned.